So we're looking at a good chunk of Mammut's harnesses here, excluding most of our alpine mountaineering, ice climbing specific harnesses, but most of our harnesses could be used for a variety of disciplines of climbing. So this is our fastest growing harness. It was introduced just a couple years ago. The idea was to create something a little more value oriented, solid, comfortable harness, reliable build with 4 buckles, so 2 on the waist and 1 on each leg. And the advantage of that is it makes it much easier to find the right size. If you're climbing in the gym or at the crag, you might choose to have a sweatshirt on or different layers. And if you have a single buckle harness, a lot of the time you put a layer on and all of a sudden your harness is off center, which can impact its comfort, or if you're sport climbing, where your draws sit. So a 4 buckle harness helps alleviate that concern as well. One thing we did a little differently on this harness is in the center back, we split the padding. And generally, harnesses of this style with that webbing over padding construction, they tend to be a little bit bulky. Allowing this to fold up easier, it just fits in your pack a little easier. A lot of times your gym bag is pretty small, or even your crag pack, maybe space is at a premium. And it doesn't impact the comfort because when you're hanging in the harness, you're being squeezed from the side. So the important part is the part of the harness that makes contact with your hips. Another feature that you'll find in all of the harnesses we're going to talk about today is something we call indicator thread. So the tie-in points and the belay loop have red thread inside the sewn elements. And what that does is it allows a climber to look at their harness and see it's wearing out. You can see the red thread. It's time to retire this harness. Of course, everybody should be inspecting their harness every time, regardless of red thread, but it alleviates that concern for sure. And then of course, this harness and the next couple harnesses we're going to talk about are all Bluesign certified as well. It's a certification regarding the manufacturing process, having to do with water usage, water waste, as well as chemical components of the construction. So it's an effort to standardize how we produce things in a more sustainable way. And next up, we have the Ophir 3 slide. This is our longest standing harness in the line right now, and also our best seller. When you move from the 4 slide into the Ophir, the main thing you're adding is you get split webbing, which you can sort of visualize here, split webbing in both the waist and the legs. And at $69.95, split webbing in the legs is a pretty uncommon feature to find. So what that does is it helps distribute the load. So it's not all of the force your weight is putting on the harness on one piece of webbing that requires thicker and thicker padding that makes it bulkier and heavier. It allows the load to be distributed between multiple points, which makes it more comfortable. Where it's split over the hip bone, instead of sitting right on the hip bone, it sort of hugs the outside of the hip bone, which is again just a little bit more comfortable. 3 buckle construction. That's a little bit more standard for climbing harnesses that most of us use. You keep the indicator thread in the belay loop and the tie-in points, but you add the tie-in protector, which is a huge bonus for durability. That tie-in protector is sewn into place, so I don't know that I've ever heard of an example of this breaking or falling off. I'm sure it's happened, but I've never heard of it. It does also have ice clipper slots, so you could start getting into ice climbing with this harness. Interest in outdoor climbing might be a reason that you would pick the Ophir 3 slide over the 4 slide. Next up, we have the Togir 2.0, which is a redesign of another long-standing harness in our line. Like the other 2 we've talked about, still Bluesign certified, still has indicator thread in both the tie-in points and the belay loop. Also, you keep the tie-in protector. What you get is a more streamlined, pared down look versus the Ophir 3 slide. You also add a 5th gear loop, makes it a little bit more versatile for somebody who maybe is interested in getting into multi-pitch climbing. Maybe they're going to carry more gear on their harness. And then you also get molded gear loops for the front 2 gear loops, which helps direct any equipment that's on your harness towards the front, makes it a little bit easier to access while you're climbing. One other feature that you get when you move from the Ophir to the Togir is the stitching of the face fabric is all directed to the outside of the harness, which again, if you're a person that likes to climb shirtless or with thin layers, if you have a seam against your skin, some people find that uncomfortable. Not everybody, but it is a consideration. And so by doing that, you remove another friction point of the harness on your skin. The Togir is going to be the lightest weight harness of the 3 we just discussed. Plenty of gym climbers, they still like to reduce bulk. Many people have said the job of a harness is to keep you safe while feeling like it's not there. So the Togir starts to approach that. It's a much lower profile harness, sits more seamlessly on your body, a little bit more freedom of movement, or at least you'll feel less of the harness while you're climbing. So these 3 harnesses are our most popular, and they range from $59.95 for the 4 slide, $69.95 for the Ophir 3 slide, and $79.95 for the Togir 2.0. The 4 slide harness comes in 2 sizes, extra small to medium, and then large to extra large. But regardless of the names of the sizes, the waist range covers 23 to 43 inches, and the leg circumference covers 17 to 28 inches. The Ophir 3 slide is offered in extra small to large for women, and small to double extra large for men. So this is the Sender Light harness. It's a new harness for Spring 24. Of our rock climbing specific harnesses, this is the lightest weight harness we have in the line. It was designed hand in hand with Adam Ondra, and it is the harness that Adam and Jacob Schubert are going to be wearing in the 2024 Olympics. You have split webbing technology. You can see 2 pieces of webbing on the inside, and then also you have the black piping on the outside, which is also load bearing. So it's actually 4-way split webbing. In the legs, that's 3. So again, anytime you split up the load distribution, you reduce the amount of force on any one point of the harness on your body, which allows you to remove padding and maintain comfort. So that's one reason that this is the lightest harness in the line. We did remove the rear gear loops, so this is a very sport climbing oriented harness. That would have no impact on you in the gym. In a sport climbing scenario, you're not expecting to carry tons of extra gear. So we increased the size of the 2 gear loops so you can still carry everything you need. In order to slim down weight, we changed the design of the belay loop so that it's Dyneema core with a nylon sheath on the belay loop. And of course, Dyneema is much lighter, allows it to be stronger by weight than nylon. And it's actually the same construction as you would find on our Magic slings. So you have 2 core pieces of Dyneema, and those are twisted in opposite directions. Then they're sewn in an infinity loop construction that goes all the way around the harness instead of having a long, bulky bar tack, which is traditional harness construction. So what that does is when you have a bar tack on a belay loop, all of the wear and tear is on one of 2 points on the belay loop versus on the infinity loop. Because that center point where they're attached is so flexible, the wear and tear is spread out. So that allows you to have a thinner, lower profile, lighter weight belay loop without really sacrificing much in the way of durability. So this is the Comfort Fast Adjust harness. It's called the Comfort, and it is comfortable. The difference between this and the Togir 2.0 is, first of all, the most noticeable thing is you get a wider waist belt and wider leg loops. So you're spreading that load out over a wider area. You also get a different shape in the harness. So you can see that there's a little bit of curvature when you go from where the harness would be sitting over your hips versus the center of your back. Again, you want the widest part of the waist belt to be on your hips because that's where most of the pressure is going to be. So comparing the Comfort to the Togir, you maintain the bottom tie-in point protector. You still have indicator thread in both the tie-in points. You maintain the front molded gear loops, but then you add the rear molded gear loops. You'd be considering this harness A if comfort's your top priority. But B, if you're going to be in that harness for a longer period of time, maybe you're going to be doing some multi-pitch trad climbing, you're going to be carrying heavier equipment on your harness that's putting more wear and tear on the harness and your body. So you want something a little bit bulkier, a little bit beefier. You still have the 5th gear loop, which adds a little bit of versatility in terms of holding that gear that you're not going to need until the end of a pitch. And then you also get the Fast Adjust leg loops. So that means you're not going to have loose pieces of webbing hanging out on your legs. It is actually very quick to adjust one-handed. Throughout the course of a day, you may want to loosen or tighten your leg loops just from a comfort perspective. The Sender Light comes in at $99.95, and the Comfort harness comes in at $109.95. Comfort Fast Adjust harness. Yeah.